would you like to help me to write the third season? Because I need new perspectives.
Hoy tenemos con nosotras a Nura Nebrenshid, que ha venido a hablar de su experiencia. Es la creadora, guionista de Mi Otra Yo, y la tenemos aquí para poder hablar de la experiencia del trabajo que hemos hecho juntas, de cómo ha sido este periodo tan bonito de trabajar y disfrutar, pero sobre todo porque ella es la madre y el alma de esta serie y escucharla es un placer. Así
Muchas
que,
gracias.
bienvenida.
Estoy muy feliz de estar aquí. Voy a hablar mejor después español, mas hoy voy a hablar inglés.
Y nosotros subtitularemos.
Muchas gracias. Well, it was 3 years ago, I guess, we met because Angeles reached out to me asking for an interview after the series, Mi Otra Yo. And I remember I was very excited and happy because I didn't know about this institute before, or biological decoding. I didn't know anything about it. But when we met and when we had this interview, then there was this beautiful communication between us. I read her book. I knew the work. I get to know the work you did here in the institute. I get to know you. And when I was planning to make the third season, there was this, let's say, inspiration in me about asking you, would you like to help me to write the third season? Because I need new perspectives in this story. So in the first 2 seasons, we only talked about the family constellation and the friendship of the girls and their journey to the past, bringing back the stories they even didn't know from the ancestors. And we saw Zaman having these constellation sessions, and the story was evolving around those let's say, acceptance of the past and how it reflects itself in their lives. But in third season, I needed something more. I needed something new, a new perspective, and that's where you bring your inputs to the story. And it was a great journey to work with you, to talk about my vision and the characters, and you were giving some ideas about, their roots or their conflicts and how would it be resolved. So we tried to put all these elements, new elements, into the series, and to give people more insight about these kind of perspectives, therapies. And I believe also there is a more scientific approach in the third season because the main character, Ada, she is a medical doctor, and in the first season she was against all this work because it wasn't scientific enough for her. And at the end of the first season, she realizes that there is something there that she needs to discover. So she needs to break her walls towards this complementary approaches. And in the second season, she goes there. She has this education from Zaman, but then she has the conflict with the scientific part, like from the hospital, from her colleagues and everything. And at the end of the second season, she realizes the guide who teach her this new approach to constellations was wounded also. He had his own conflicts with his son. And Ada was disappointed because then what is the point of all these lectures, all these points of view? So I needed a third season to sum up everything, to find a conclusion within the characters and within these approaches to find the balance. And with your help, I think, hopefully we could manage that. Yeah.
Ojalá.
Sí, Ada pudo aprender en su viaje a, como tú dices, aquí a España, Sitges, pudo aprender que hay algo más que hacer solo una constelación familiar o un trabajo único, porque podría haber sido de cualquier otro tipo de terapia. Y introduce su propio trabajo personal, su trabajo con el árbol, con su historia, además de aprender cómo acompañar a otras personas,
Sí.
¿no? Y esto, ¿cómo lo has desarrollado?
In the end of the second season, to be honest, I didn't know where she was going. Because it also depends on the conditions of the production, if we can shoot somewhere else, you know. And it took 2 years again to write the third episode. And because I was coming a lot here to work with you, to the retreats, and of course, I think first I was thinking about Greece, that she goes to Greece because there was a Greek island where they used to treat people in this island in ancient times. And first my focus was around Greece, to be honest. And then Spain became more obvious for me because I have you and I have all these locations in my mind, and I can imagine in a more concrete way what can happen. And I always had you to ask questions like, for how many, I mean, Ada would need how many years to become also a therapist? Is it enough to have all this education? Will she be capable of combine science, medicine, and therapy in a, you know, in one roof? So you make me also met with other people who does the same, and it was a huge inspiration again. And I think that's why she had to come to Spain and Sitges, because I love Sitges. And I wrote a lot of episodes in Sitges while visiting you, you know, sitting there in my balcony looking at the sea and, you know, creating all these images. And the musicians I met here in Sitges, they involved in the project also, because I believe if you have a concrete vision in your mind, it's easier to realize it. If you don't know what exactly you want these scenes or episodes would look like, then there is always these foggy states, you know, nobody knows. The director, the production, they don't know. But when I give them the source, like, look, Sitges looks like this, I made pictures, and I want them to meet you because they can feel the vibe. What is Ada doing in the series?
Yeah.
You know, we didn't name it, but the attitude, the posture, you know, the approach was supported by you, so that in set everybody believed in it, and the actors, Tuba also, she worked with you too, so she had this, she knows how does it feel to make a therapy like this or being in a therapy like this. So I think it all comes from the experience we had, and this is what makes it more real, I guess.
Hay algo que tú cuidas mucho que en un proyecto, y eso tiene que ver con la huella que tú dejas, ¿no? Tu forma de trabajar, y es el cuidar todo ese proceso donde tú experimentas en primera persona lo que estás construyendo, pero también llevas a tu equipo, porque Tuba fue invitada también a través de ti, tú les abres a tu equipo, ¿no? Y a todo el proyecto el que puedan inspirarse como tú te has inspirado o sentir como tú has sentido. Y esa forma es única, yo creo que eso también es lo que hace único al proyecto. Pero ¿nos podrías explicar, tú que tienes una visión de cineasta, de comunicación y de entender todo lo que hay dentro, cuánto se tarda en hacer este proyecto? ¿Qué detalles son los que quieres llevar a la pantalla? ¿Cómo cuidas todo ese proceso, que es algo muy tuyo?
Ah, yes, there were very, very details, visual details. And you know the process because I always share it with you. For instance, I had this vision for Özgür, the new character, because I just knew that Ada needs a partner in some qualities, because working with yourself and not having a further step doesn't mean anything, you know. You can have thousands of constellations, hours of therapy, months of work, inner work, but in real life, in actual life, if you don't change your steps, if you don't change your approach, you will end up in the same situation. So Ada needed to have this relationship with Özgür, and when she feels the same threat, like, is there another woman again? Because it's repeating the story of her family, her mom. And this time he should act differently. So when I know this, then I can build the scenes. Then I can imagine what kind of a man is Özgür, and anthropology is something very interesting and very complementary to all we try to discover in this series. And I speak with you again, and you know, if he was an anthropologist, what kind of a past life he should have? And from a therapist's eyes, Angeles told me probably he was unseen when he was a kid. Something tragic happened in the family, and he was unseen because a major tragedy was going on there. And then I imagined, because I knew he didn't want to have kids. These are all instincts coming to me, you know, because I always need a conflict between the characters. So when Ada finds this perfect match, there should be something missing, which would be a man who doesn't want to have kids. While Ada was questioning, is it the right time for me to build my own family? So that would be the conflict between them. But then I have to ask as a writer, why? Why Özgür doesn't want to have kids? Which bring us to his backstory and this tragic event that the little sister died in front of his eyes. And he knows the pain of this loss, you know, a loss of a little children in the family, which destroyed his family because they couldn't handle this tragedy. They end up broke up, the family broken up. And then, as a perspective from the constellations, from the systemic work, I have to ask, why did this kid have to die? Why? Why there was this heart disease? Then it makes me move further in the past. And we also did work with Feride Gürsoy, an amazing woman, Turkish, and therapist and family constellator. And we did a constellation for this specific situation with the actors, with Şükrü, with Tuğba, you know, with I was representing a secret in the family. And in this constellation, everything find its place. The puzzle was completed. There was a backstory because all the characters are archetypes, right? All the characters are result of an energy, of human energy, which can be connected to other people. So I don't create anything. I just combine information. I just combine other people's stories. They already existed in a form. So that I think that's what I do as a writer. So when we had this constellation, everything was so clear. Like why Özgür didn't want to have kids, why Ada is, she wants to go towards Özgür, but she still has walls because she didn't close the past relationships in a proper way. So all these constellations and talk and work with you and with Feride, and they made me write those scenes to make the story go forward to a closure, because it has to end in some point.
Es como que siempre hay una historia detrás de la historia, ¿no?
Sí.
Algo que ocurrió para que alguien tenga un comportamiento o un tipo de conducta, y que esto nos lleva también a hacer elecciones en la vida, elección de pareja, de trabajo, de estudio, de forma de vida. Y tú lo has plasmado perfectamente en esta serie, porque además incorporas en cada uno el pasado. Al inicio de cada capítulo está la historia más antigua sobre la que se remontan, y eso yo creo que cuando lo vemos las personas a las que nos gusta ver, por ejemplo, nuestro árbol genealógico, ahí queda plasmado el por qué está.
Sí, sí. I think this storytelling in television, in cinema, is a very direct way to touch people, because when they see it visually, they experience it. And with the amazing actors, amazing direction, they are in the scene. So it's different than reading a book or, telling somebody about the experience. That's what I hear very commonly. Like the people from all around the world, they say something hit us in this series. We cannot explain what. So it's a mystery, but possibly they are. The series trigger something in their inner world, because those stories can be. They don't have nationalities. They don't have languages. Every human being passed through all these experiences, and yeah.
Y todos hemos tenido antepasados que han tenido problemas.
Sí.
Y tú muestras, hay un problema y luego hay una vida ahí. Y una vida que también tiene problemas, pero que finalmente todos encuentran una solución, porque hay cosas negativas, positivas, neutras, y es muy bonito verlo, como lo has dibujado.
Sí, yo traigo esto que ahora hablabas, ¿no? De cómo la gente a través de las 2 temporadas, y ahora seguramente a través de la tercera, se va a reconocer en muchas de las historias por esa resonancia que hay también, y ese sentir que son historias reales, pero además pensadas desde todos los puntos de vista, ¿no?
Sí.
Que ha construido a alguien y cómo ha llegado. Para ti, el haber creado este proyecto y haberlo desarrollado durante 6 años, bueno, más de 6 años llevas, porque ya 6 años de creación, ¿cómo te sientes ahora en este momento?
It was really hard to write the last episode. Oh my God, I cried so much. Because when I started to think about these stories, it was a very hard time in my life, because I had this loss of my father, and there was the pandemic, and it was, it was the most transformative period of my life, these 6 years. I've changed a lot. My life has changed. I moved to the Netherlands, I got married, and all my life changed in a sense. So this series was accompanying me during all this process. So it reflects all my process. And that's why I have this special connection with this series, because I've written lots of series, lots of films. I've been doing this job over 20 years now. I've written more than 300 episodes for television. But this one is very different and special to me. And those girls are my friends. Those girls are my support in life. And I get confused a lot with them in real life. And, you know, when I speak to Tuba, sometimes she's Ada to me. And when I speak to Bonjuk, Seda, they are like, you know, it's all mixture. And when I wrote, I remember very well. I wrote the last episode. I cried. I opened the wine. I drank a couple of wine, and then I started to call all the girls. Like I called Bonjuk, crying, say, okay, you didn't read it yet, but just know I love you so much, and I thank you for all you give to this character, and you became the inspiration of this character. And thank you for everything. I love you. And then I called Seda. Seda, I love you. I love Leila. And you know, all these emotions coming. And on set, it was also difficult. But I had this process of being able to say goodbye to this project because life always goes forward, you know. And I need to go forward. I need to write new characters, new things in life. And I'm very much thankful to every single person that contributed this work because it's a huge team working for it, like hundreds of people. And I also am very thankful to the audience because they made this series going on because they like it, because they own it. We could do the second season because they own it again. We could do the third season. So they gave us the chance and the force to continue. And of course, I'm very thankful to Netflix because they believed in the project 6 years ago and they distributed this they financed it, they distributed the project to 190 countries.
Yeah.
So millions of people are watching this journey and it's beyond my dream. So
Algo difícil de imaginar. Ha sido hermoso escucharte, pero más hermoso es tenerte en nuestras vidas. Y supongo que vendrán, como tú dices, nuevos proyectos, pero la Ebran que eres ahora a la de los últimos 20 años trabajando, supongo que esto que has creado nuevo seguirás trayéndolo al mundo. No sé si tienes ya proyectos en mente o cosas o ideas de esto quiero seguirlo llevando hacia adelante. ¿Tienes ahora algún proyecto en marcha o ideas de hacer algo nuevo
sí,
llevando esta energía?
Sí, sí. ¿Por qué? Because now I know if you really create something from the heart, from the experience, and the people feels included into this project, then it can travel all around the world. Then it becomes universal. Then it unites people. It creates new communities, new friendships, new journeys. The power of cinema is, I was amazed with the power of cinema when I was a kid, you know, and I'm very happy that I can follow my dream to become a screenwriter. And from now on, every project I create or I write or I contribute, I will keep in this mind, you know, it has to mean something. It has to say a word or ask a question which is meaningful. Because of this crazy world, you know, this crazy violence in the world nowadays, we really need stories that connect us, not divide us, but connect us. So I hope and wish my new projects will create the same or more.
Sí, eres una persona que tocas todas las almas, porque tocas la de la persona y todo lo que viene detrás.
Tú también.
Y el alma familiar, el alma colectiva, la posibilidad de producir un cambio en el mundo y no trabajar para un instante, sino para muchos. Cuando piensas, alguien ha cambiado, por ejemplo, Aran que tiene una hija pequeña, ¿no? Y ya es diferente con su hija ya será diferente en otro momento, ¿no? En lugar de seguir en una cadena de dolor, es en una cadena de transformación continua. O sea que es hermoso el trabajo que has hecho, precioso. Y yo tengo que agradecerte tanto que me hubieras invitado, que luego hubiéramos podido compartir con Ara, que hubiera sido una transformación para todos nosotros.
Thank you very much. I felt very safe when I was having you on my side because I was writing, you were reading, giving me notes. You know, the support I received from you was precious, very precious. Because this writing is a very lonely job.
Yeah.
It's a very lonely process. And the first people who reads is very important because their energy, their feedback affects me very much. So if it's not supportive, if it's all critical or not resonated, what I try to do, it breaks all my courage and I step back and I go into my world and I doubt everything. Because you gave the support and Feride also my script doctor Senam, you were the first people who read, and my husband, of course. Yes, he was always there to listen, to question, to give me some ideas, to cry with me, to laugh with me. So he was, since the beginning, he was there. And all these primer eyes is essential for me to be sure or to improve what I try to do. Then it goes to production. Then it goes to actors, director, and they, of course, they have a heartful look, of course, but also then it becomes the budgets, the business, the locations, how to do that, how to do it differently. So other concerns came on the table. And that is necessary for this job to be done. I have no problem with this. But the first insight, first energy is always very important. So thank you for being there to support this project.
Y gracias por habernos puesto ahí y para nosotros ha sido, bueno, yo especialmente disfrutaba cada noche que recibía el guión y decía, ¡bien! Y poder trabajar ahí, compartir y sentir y decir aquí sí, aquí no. Y también el espacio yo creo que no sé si es como trabajan otras personas, pero lo que tú nos ofreciste es apertura total a poderte decir esto funciona, esto no, esto nos gusta, esto resuena. Y eso nos lo hizo muy fácil, y luego lo divertido que también nos lo hemos pasado, que también es divertido el proceso, ¿no? De escuchar, de entender lo que hay en tu cabeza. Yo me emociono siempre que te oigo, siempre te lo digo. La forma que tienes de explicar las cosas, a mí me parece que tienes un don. Y tienes un don que llega al mundo y que deseo que esta serie sea algo que siga abriendo y siga movilizando a tantas y tantas personas. Así que, Ebran, gracias por este proyecto.
I always want to work with you, with all the projects, because if you think about any character, it has to have a journey, it has to have a past. And when there is good therapists, with you in your back, you know what is happening, why, what is the solution, what is the conflict, you know, and it gets easier for me to dive into this new journey. And just one more example, when we talk about this little girl, Halime, in the series, I mean, there was a lot of contradiction to have this character in this season, you know, for many senses, because it's sad, because, you know, she is a victim of earthquake, she lost the parents, she lost the ability to walk, and she is abused, and blah, 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 blah. And so a lot of people in the production team or in the actors team, they thought it's too much, it's too sad to see this girl in this show, because this show, the series, has also have the lightness, the the joyful scenes, the bright scenes, the happy scenes, and but I couldn't change it, because it's real, it's happening, and we should see these facts, and the story is completed because now she has a family, even though she loses Sevgi. So when we were talking about this girl as a therapist, the support you gave, how would she draw things, what is happening inside of her, the idea that we found together that she doesn't want to take off this shirt because the mother, it was the last thing she had from her mom, and the consolation for her. So it is revolutionary. I mean, so it was a very, very complementary work that we did together. And I'm very thankful for everything to you.
Lo veremos este resultado en la respuesta también de la gente, si se siente tocada con todo esto, ¿no? Con estos pasados que son compartidos, porque todos somos personas, todos somos hijos y todos tenemos padres. Entonces nos ha de tocar, ¿no?
Yeah, I think so.
Sí, y gracias por mantener a Halime, porque sé que fue difícil en algún momento tener ese personaje, pero yo creo que tantas familias y tantas personas van a agradecer que se visibilice precisamente eso, que es lo que hablábamos. O sea, hay que mirar también lo que es doloroso y ver qué oportunidades pueden haber ahí de cambiar la mirada y de llevar al mundo pues un pedacito de luz.
And that was the force behind the third season. There is pain in this world. There is loss, there is death, there is accidents, and it can happen to anyone. And we just try to say, yes, we can work with our ancestors, the constellations, therapy, everything, but it never means you won't have any more pain. It doesn't mean there will be no conflict. It's just
no vamos a tener el final feliz.
Cosas y es imposible eso.
No existe el final feliz. Existe una vida donde construyo y donde intento. El otro día en el retiro ahora decía una alumna, dice, es como una espiral, ¿no? Vas trabajando y vas consiguiendo que a poquito todo eso que va resonando en ti ya no duela tanto y pueda ser, bueno, que te pueda conectar con la vida. Gracias, Ebran. A ti.
Gracias a ti. Always. Oh, thank you.
Gracias por esta entrevista a Ebran, a Ángeles, a vosotros que estáis detrás. Si queréis conocer más sobre la historia de Ebran, sobre la historia de mi otra yo, sobre los análisis que hemos podido hacer, no os olvidéis de darle like al vídeo, suscribiros y sobre todo, si algo de lo que ha contado os ha tocado, dejadnos un comentario.
Gracias.